I know this title sounds hyperbolic. Donald Trump is planning premeditated murder on tens of thousands of African Americans. And yet I will hold my shape and I would hold that particular argument because that particular argument just so happens to be correct. Why do I say that? I say that because he is going to take a policy, and that policy is going to get a lot of people killed. And they know the policy is going to get a lot of people killed, but it is to his political advantage to do so. So when I say it's premeditated, everything that he's doing is willful, intentional, and understood from the standpoint of the consequences. And he is going to do it anyway. Welcome. Late night. Blurry-eyed. Not been to bed yet, but still on point. Soapbox. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you enjoy this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal, Patreon. This may be the most important video that I ever do. Because when I say thousands of lives are on the line, I literally, flat fact, statistically true, mean thousands of lives are on the line. And the lives don't cut evenly. If I was, let's say, the B universe version of me, let's say for the moment, like, in Star Trek, you have the Spock with the beard. Let's say I'm Jamal Thomas with that particular beard. And that was my tenor also. And I'm sitting in the room with Donald Trump. And a guy stands up and says, Mr. President, you have a lot of problems. And he goes down the list. The economy has collapsed. People are dying from a global pandemic that, if we're being honest, sir, a lot of it has to do with your incompetence. We are now the epicenter of that particular virus. You're in the middle of a campaign, meaning election season. You have to also deal with the rigors of that because anything that happens is also going to be used against you for that. Other countries around the world are pissed at you while you're in the middle of a campaign, meaning we have an integrated world. And if one of those countries do something that causes some kind of shock in our system, be it financial, be it oil, or for that matter, be it military, it will affect you potentially. Especially if you get blamed for something that happens. Something that basically on your incompetence that you have put into action later on and it just blew up. You could be blamed for that. Democrats are going to hit you on the economy and Democrats are going to hit you on your handling of the virus. Now, somebody else stands up and says, we do have two good points. Positive. Joe Biden is your opponent.
Of course, whatsoever with the rest of the world on dealing with these things. We led, like Barack Obama led in the
Yeah, and they all laugh. They all laugh. They joke and they laugh. And then they calm down, They said, look, he has all of your weaknesses. He's just been accused of sexual abuse. So you're going to have that to play fighter with. All the other Democrats had to basically line up after the Kavanaugh stuff and then repudiate pretty much the Me Too movement in order to back this guy. That has political fighter written all into it. Whoever he picks as vice president, you can effectively find a statement from that and apply it to him. So yes, we like that. He's inarticulate. He passed a crime bill that put a lot of black people in prison. You have been trying to get those black people out of prison. And his son is corrupt. We have a lot to work with. Then the second one makes the point that the demographic breakdown of COVID cases. And people lean in. I said, what do you mean? U.S. 1,268,051. Let me make sure that's the most recent number. Right. All right. 1,258,051. New cases, 20,419. Total deaths, 74,190. New deaths, 1,909. 1,919. Now, the expectation, me talking to Trump, is that based on a forecast where we are trying to reopen the economy, the deaths will double. The deaths will double. A newly revised coronavirus mortality model predicts nearly 135,000 Americans will die from COVID by early August, almost double the previous projections. The social distancing measures for quelling the pandemic are increasingly relaxed, researchers said Monday. Now, one more point. a new virus or version of the coronavirus, because viruses don't necessarily stay static, they mutate. And as these viruses mutate, how you, let's say, deal with those viruses may change over time. That's why the flu virus is never really accurate, because it's always behind from a particular mutation. Well, in this case, the virus is mutated in multiple ways. And in some of the ways that it's mutated, the mutated version has become dominant and stronger and has been basically taking over the other territories and versions. Meaning the notion of herd immunity is off the table. You could be infected with a version of the virus and still get infected with another mutation of that version of the virus. So again, relaxing the social distancing thing, thinking, well, this person was infected once, does not mean you cannot be infected twice. You also make the point to Trump, however, that on the positive side, there is a breakdown in the way that people in this country perceive the virus, but also are affected by the virus. Now, you make the point that from the standpoint of your supporters, Republicans, when they hear the numbers, most Americans say they doubt the U.S. death count, but whether they think it's actually higher or lower depends on whether they're Democrat or Republican, according to the latest installment of the poll. This may be the most jarring evidence to date about how deeply partisanship has infected our collective ability to trust institutional sources and agree on science and facts. Trust in government is abstract, but death counts are real. People who primarily news sources Fox News Channel are most likely to say that the U.S. death counts attributed to the coronavirus are inflated, meaning these numbers are too high. Republicans, Fox News viewers. Now, understand what that means. That means they look at these numbers with all of these people and they say, yep, they're trying to make those numbers higher than what they are. Now, I have no idea why would Trump want to make the numbers higher than they are. Here's the catch. The numbers are going to be lower by default because Trump doesn't have the test kits to even know what those numbers are, meaning whatever the numbers come out to be, by definition, they have to be higher. The notion that you can look at those numbers and say those numbers are lower is just propaganda. It's a skew in the way the Republicans view this versus the way Democrats view this. I hope you understand what I mean and why that's important. If we're looking at this as a country and you have a breakdown in parties, Democrats, African Americans, some whites, Hispanics, Asians. Whites, mostly. Some Hispanics, some Asians, etc., but mostly white. And then they start looking at this virus differently, where one side, this side says, okay, those numbers are about right or less than what they're telling me. And this other side says, those numbers are too high. Now, the moment that these guys are saying these numbers are too high, this is creating a breeding ground for thinking, maybe we need to open this back up. Now, this is basically the policy that Donald Trump wants anyway. So from their standpoint, all right, how do we incentivize these guys who are basically on our side with this to incentivize them that much more to open all of this back up? Then you get reports that this virus is not hitting demographics equally. When you look at what's happening to the black community versus the other parts of the spectrum, right here, I just read part of these. Half of all COVID-19 cases and nearly 60% of the deaths are due to disease in the United States occurred in counties that are disproportionately black, according to the newly released data that is being reviewed by scientists. The numbers of COVID-19 diagnoses and deaths are also higher in counties with bigger proportions of black residents, the new analysis shows. Only 22% of the counties in the United States are disproportionately black. But the people within them have endured the majority of the deaths in the country. These findings are the most comprehensive evidence we have to yet showing how the novel coronavirus has taken a heavier toll on African Americans since the national demographic data on race. More than 80% of the coronavirus cases hospitalized in Georgia were black, according to the recent sample taken by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention of 305 patients. More than 90% of the disproportionately black counties studied in the South, but the researchers found that the cases and deaths were higher in African American communities, regardless of whether they were rural or urban. Let's go to this one. For each 100,000 Americans in their respective groups, 37.2 blacks have died, along with 16 Asians, 15.9 Latinos, 14.3 whites. These rates are so disparate, it can hardly appreciate what this means. To put it plainly, If black Americans had died of COVID-19 at the same rate as whites, 9,000 of the nearly 15,000 residents who have died from these states would still be alive. Here's another one. In Kansas and Wisconsin, black residents are 7 times more likely to die than white residents. In Washington, D.C., the rate among blacks is 6 times higher than whites, while in Michigan and Missouri, it is 5 times. In Arkansas, Illinois, Louisiana, New York State, Oregon, and South Carolina, the rate is 3 to 4 times likely to die from the virus, the one that's above. Collectively, black Americans represent 13% of the population in proportion to America, releasing such data, but have suffered 27% of the deaths. In 16 states, Michigan, South Carolina, Missouri, Kansas, Wisconsin, Louisiana, Illinois, Georgia, Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Maryland, North Carolina, New York, and Kentucky, as well as in the District of Columbia, the difference between black residents' share of the deaths and the share of the population ranges from 10 to 36% points. These are deeply troubling mortality rates. Look, I know that's a lot to read, but I just wanted to make the very basic point that when you're looking at the rates, there's a disparity there in the rates that is undeniable and that's clear as day and that has already been discussed in the media. So one group who doesn't necessarily believe the numbers and is not affected to the exact same degree as the other group in the other party is like, yeah, let's get back to work. In more numbers than the other group because the majority of the population wants to stay home, but the Democrats are more so, Republicans are less so. And so if I'm talking to Trump, but I'm like, look, the people who are going to be hurt the most by this are not voting for you anyway. You need to open the economy up. The Democratic Party is going to attack you on the economy. When you open the economy, you blame China, but you also blame the coronavirus and say the economy was great beforehand. But as you rev up the economy, what you also must do in this situation is basically accept that people are going to die. But also acknowledge and know that your population, your base, more so believes that more of the other party is going to die from this because they seem to be affected more by this. So the fact that you're revving up the economy is going to less hurt your base than it is going to hurt that other team. And your base, because you've basically incentivized them to want to get this economy going by basically not supplying their needs. The majority of the population works paycheck to paycheck. The majority of the population don't have $500 in the bank. So the moment that you have, 30 million jobs lost, that number is going to go higher. What do those people do when the majority of those people are literally doing paycheck to paycheck? You basically incentivize people by their vulnerability and by their own very basic needs. You have had these people at their wits' end for so long, and now something like this happens and the string breaks. And you give $1,200 as if it's just to say, we gave you something. Now, the catch here is some people are so ideologically bent that they would look at that something and say, oh, thank you, the government gave me something. And then believe that it is entirely on themselves, as if they themselves are individuals in a bubble somewhere, and not necessarily in case in a society where other people in that society are making decisions that are affecting them from a policy standpoint. It is perfectly just for the government to shut down the economy when there's a pandemic. A pandemic is a real thing. It's something that's interceding on our lives that oftentimes aren't real things. You just have to deal with it. It's like anything else. It's like an illness. You break a bone. It takes a while for the bone to heal. Well, same thing. Pandemic, society-wide. Rushing and getting back will get people killed. Now, it's rational, however, also for the government to say, we will pay 80% to make sure you guys are good. But our government didn't do that. Our government basically said we're going to shut it down and we're going to starve the population into wanting to get back into the system. Trump then works behind the scenes and he gets these astroturf people out there saying we need to open the government back up. And then he can turn and say, hey, there are people out there saying they want to open the government back up. They're warriors. They want to open it up. Now, the catch here is, again, the trick of all this, and the reason that this works is because when the economy opened back up, as you see, the rising total of people who are dying in this are African Americans, and that number will continue to rise because those are the people who are less likely to be able to work from home, meaning those are the people that will be on the front lines, and those numbers that you're seeing here will continue to go up. Trump is doing this knowingly. I hope you understand what I'm saying here. This is rational policy. And the rational policy in this case is, I need to open up the economy, and I understand something is going to take a hit, But the thing that's going to take the hit the most is them. My base will understand this. My base doesn't even entirely believe the science on this. I have a 94% approval. This is what we're going to do. And then he goes out and tries to make the political opinion of why he's opening up the economy and accepting that some people are going to pass. When his base, and he knows, and everybody in this room knows, that who's going to take the axe? Them. People like me. People like me. And don't take my word for it. Listen to the governor of Texas.
Or more cases of COVID. How do we know reopening businesses won't result in faster spread or more cases of COVID-19? Listen, the fact of the matter is, pretty much every scientific and medical report shows that whenever you have a reopening, whether you want to call it a reopening of business or just a reopening of society, in the aftermath of something like this, that actually will lead to an increase in spreads. It's almost ipso facto. The more that you have people out there, the greater the possibility there is for transmission.
He admits, yes, people are going to die. So after this talk with the President of the United States that I just gave, showing the numbers, the people who are going to die more, the people who are going to support you, the people who are not going to believe the science of the stuff that you're going to be able to give that message to, and the people, your supporters, who want to get back to work, because those people know that the other people are going to take the hit that much more for the economy to get back up and going. They also need their paychecks. Trump comes out after coming through that bit of analysis.
I think that as far as the task force, Mike Pence and the task force have done a great job, but we're now looking at a little bit of a different form, and that form is safety and opening, and we'll have a different group probably set up for that.
Are you saying mission accomplished?
No, not at all. The mission accomplished is when it's over. When it's over, Jim, mission accomplished. Mostly. And I just said it today. I used the word for the first time, I think, in terms of what we're doing. I'm viewing our great citizens of this country, to a certain extent and to a large extent, as warriors. They're warriors. We can't keep our country closed. We have to open our country. Well, now it's time to open it up. And you know what? The people of our country are warriors, and I'm looking at it. I'm not saying anything is perfect. And yes, will some people be affected? Yes. Will some people be affected badly? Yes. But we have to get our country open, and we have to get it open soon.
Will some people be affected? Yes. Will some people be affected more than others? Yes. But those people are warriors. Those people are warriors. Those black folks that are going to die en masse from the policies that I am passing right now are absolutely warriors. Trump supporters are going to understand that. They're going to read the reports and they're going to say, all right, look, acceptable losses in order to get this economy going. Now, that's cynical, but tell me I'm wrong. I mean, ultimately, if you're getting the economy up and running and you're blowing away the task force, what you're basically doing is saying we're prioritizing getting up and running on the economy. And in getting up and running on the economy, it's already known, you can see it statistically right now, that the number of people who die as you do that are African Americans and Hispanics. Because, why? Those are the people who are going to be on the front lines and are less inclined to be in jobs that you can work remotely on. So when I say Trump, for political reasons, for political strategy, for electoral strategy, is accepting the losses of tens of thousands of African Americans in order to run his election campaign and kickstart the economy, it is obvious, just based on the evidence available to us, that comes out explaining the number of people who are lost, the demographics that get hit more in that loss, the people who are backing Trump, what those people believe that are backing Trump, and basically what will take place as the economy kicks up and running, and who will be more adversely affected in that situation. Yes, there will be people who are on the side of Trump that gets ill also. I'm not saying that. I'm making the point that there's a disproportionate number of African Americans, and once the group knows that, you can reconcile some people getting ill on your side if you think that there's more people getting ill on the other. That is grim politics, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not true, especially if you're looking at a situation where your economy has just crashed. You need to get the economy up and running, and you need to give something in order to get that economy up and running. And in this case, who do you sacrifice? Do you sacrifice your base or theirs? Theirs. The preference would be to sacrifice neither if it was a rational government. but this is not a rational government. And in this case, he wants to get this economy up and running as soon as possible. You must understand the people who are pushing Trump, who are putting money in Trump's pocket, who are putting money in the Democratic Party's pocket, don't want the economy frozen. They want this economy up and running. Trump is freaked out in part because ultimately he was going to run on this notion of an awesome economy, and then this hit. And so right off the base, one of his main things, his main singing points, has been taken off the table. Now, the Democratic Party is going to hit him on this, but Trump's argument is going to be, look, the COVID-19 virus hit, the economy was great. While he gets that up and running, by the same token, the Democratic Party is not really going to put opposition because they're paid for the exact same owner class that pays the Democratic Party. Meaning the little squawking that you hear, the flaccid penis in a cold wind after coming out of the swimming pool opposition that the Democratic Party is putting up. The owner class wants the Republican Party to run this ball. They want this economy up and running, even if that means some of those people get ill and sick, because fact is, it's not them. They are not going to be the ones that get sick. So they are not the ones that are going to be hit by this. I hope you understand what I mean when I'm saying in the way the politics is being played here. The Republican Party under Trump understands what their base is and what their base wants and what their base is willing to accept. They also understands that the majority of the damage of this is going to hit the other groups. In doing this, the owner class is pushing them to open the economy. So it is an acceptable loss if your base can be spared much of the damage, and much of the other damage can be put on your other opponents. They're not going to vote for you anyway. So if one side has to take the hit, it's going to be that guy. On top of that, you have the Democratic Party that puts up no resistance to this, meaning any bill that the Republican put out, the Democrats can run with. Because they also understand that if they put the real program, this is we're going to give people $2,000, even if they're fighting with the Republicans on it, and there's something that's given to the public itself, it makes it that much more difficult for those people to be starved into submission where they will be forced to go back to work even if their health needs are at risk. This is not one or the other, it's both. The Republican parties may be taking the lead, but Democrats are doing the dance with them by not doing pretty much anything. And by the way, Fox News for Republicans enshrines this idea that basically this is the propaganda that the people are listening to when they're making this argument that, oh, it's not as many as they're saying it is.
Enough. Inflated numbers. Enough of the lockdown. The Declaration of Independence gives us the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Included is the right to survive. Enough.
Inflated numbers. If you're asking why Republicans think the numbers are inflated, if you get a dose of this over and over and over again, and you look at these faces and you trust those faces, and those faces are... But he was clear. His policy is to open the economy. And it's very clear what that's going to lead to. How can that not be premeditated? Especially when you know tens of thousands will die as a result of your electoral policy. I'll leave it here.